Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's bonus episode on None the Lesser. This is your host, Cody Buchanan. If you tuned in for the episode earlier this week, you'll know that I talked to my wife, Emily Buchanan, the sole proprietor of Ebb and Flow Studio. If you tuned in, you'll also know that my wife paints these animals in these outfits and gives them their own names and stories. It's all very interesting. And sometimes I help. I figured this week for the bonus episode, it would be, I guess, best if I just read some of those stories. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to tell you the story about Edna and Jerry. This is a three-parter. Part 1. Edna found herself in the first rut of her career doing psychic readings. She had made her dream a reality, using her natural, strong intuition to make an actual impact on souls looking for direction. Her clients always left in complete awe of what she was able to tell them, and needless to say, her Yelp reviews were off the charts. So why was it that when she looked across the table at Jerry, she was drawing a blank? Too many ciders last night, maybe? She only had 2, but still. Her crystal ball intensified the blankness, and she felt her anxiety heighten as Jerry blinked back at her. But just then, she felt that little inexplicable spark. Trying not to overanalyze the sensation, she just decided to blurt it out and roll with it. Anything to end the silence. I'm getting a strong sense a passionate, scandalous love affair is about to enter your life. One like you've never seen. One you could never have expected. It'll be here soon, so prepare to kiss your old life goodbye as you're whisked into the throes of desire and infatuation. Jerry continued to blink, trying to grasp what he was hearing. Part 2. Jerry's eyes darted side to side as he stepped out of Edna's fortune-telling studio and into the bright daylight. He felt shame and embarrassment looking back at his whole experience. From seeing his ex had checked in at Edna's on Facebook recently, to booking the appointment, to desperately scanning cars in the parking lot, this was a wake-up call. It had been 4 years since Isabel had left him. Too emotionally unavailable, too logical, too much of a workaholic. What better way to show her he has changed as a man than casually bumping into her at a fortune teller? Jerry sighed and began his drive back to the office, the green palm reading sign glowing in his rearview mirror. A waste of a good lunch break. He honestly hadn't even listened to Edna since his mind was so stuck on Isabel. Who was that guy in her latest cover photo anyways? Back at the office, he is surprised to see his boss, Harold, leaning against his cubicle wall. There you are, Jerry. I've been wanting to let you know, my wife, Maud, she's, going to be working in your department here for a while. You mind training her this week? Before Jerry could answer, Maud emerges from a nearby office. Part 3. Maud and Harold had just celebrated their 20th anniversary. Married to a successful CEO and left to pursue her crocheting hobbies at home most days in a spotless home, you would think she was living the dream. But things aren't always as they seem. Maud couldn't remember the last time she felt truly seen by Harold, and with him gone nearly every day, she thought there was no better way to feel important and possibly reconnect with him than to join him at work. Reluctantly, Harold found her a spot in the accounting department. Sure, she lacked the credentials, but he had a good guy to train her. Jerry was his name. Upon first meeting Jerry, Maud was shocked at how young he was. Yet, despite their age difference, he had a maturity about him. He was nervous, but looked her deep in her eyes the way young men never do anymore. She could feel his body heat radiate off of him with how close they sat. He was patient with the computer trading, didn't make her feel dumb like the other people his age did. She could foresee this training going on for many more weeks if she asked enough questions. She brushed his leg with her tail and left it there, pretending not to notice. He didn't pull away either. And that's the end of that tale. So, I don't know, guys. Is Jerry's boss, his wife, that passionate love affair? You got to look at those paintings, though, because they're amazing. Edna is this sloth with a crystal ball, and she's got like the fortune teller hood thing. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called, but she's got that on her head. And Jerry's this like dorky looking meerkat. And then you've got Maud, who is a bearded dragon, all dressed up in her lipstick. And yeah, it's a really funny set of portraits to look at while considering their story. But I did want to read you one more story. This is a two-parter. It's about Juicebox and Annabelle. Part 1. Juicebox and his best bud Frankie Stromboli Jones leaned a foot up against the brick wall and crossed their arms in unison. It has become their Saturday pastime to loiter outside the neighborhood speakeasy, waiting for the evening musical entertainment to begin inside or for them to come up with some other sort of trouble to cause elsewhere. Whatever came first. Juice wasn't a bad guy. He just knew he wasn't destined for the straight and narrow path like his parents had always pushed him on. A traditional life like his sister Annabelle was clearly headed straight for as well. "What do you think Annabelle is up to on a night like tonight?" Stromboli asked, seemingly reading his mind. I don't know. Probably baking muffins or brushing her hair or something lame like that," Juicebox responded, hoping to steer the conversation away from his sister as quickly as possible. He knew Stromboli had a secret thing for her. Thankfully, jazz music interrupted their conversation as it echoed through the speakeasy wall. The boys scurried to the entrance just in time for a sultry voice to begin singing into the microphone. It was going to be a good night. But stepping into the dim, smoky tavern was a moment neither of the boys would ever forget, for they could not believe who stood in the spotlight of the stage. Part 2. Of course Juicebox was right, Annabelle thought to herself. She needed to be adventurous. Be daring for once, his voice rang in her head. If only he knew where she was now. As she heard the standing bassist tuning his strings, she thought about what was about to happen. Vinny's hovel was a backstreet joint that she had been nudged towards by a friend who had danced there before. A friend who was on her way to Broadway. At first, it was intimidating, but the other dancers taught her how to loosen up for the first big night, a solo debut. "You're on in 5, Annabelle." She took one last look at herself in the mirror. Cigarette smoke made the room hazy and offended her, but she felt bad for once in her life. And feeling bad felt good. The red velvet curtains hung before her as she stood, anxious in wait. She hid behind the lacy white fan she held before her eyes. As the Kittelations, the resident jazz band, started to play, the curtains parted. Annabelle made the white fan shudder as the house lights centered on her. With a graceful flick of her tail, she lowered the fan and glided into the light. Only seeing the silhouettes of the patrons made it easy to get over the stage fright. As she started her routine, Annabelle secretly wished that her brother's friend, Stromboli, could see her now. And that's the end of this story with Annabelle and Juicebox. So Obviously, we've got ourselves a little scandal going on here. Annabelle surprising her brother. And of course, maybe Stromboli's in for a surprise too when she finally comes clean with how she feels. But yeah, that's the bonus episode I wanted to share with you because, like I said, these stories are entertaining, funny, and captivating. So you got to look at the art that matches these because it makes it even better. Go listen to my interview with my wife earlier this week and follow her, follow Nonethelesser on Instagram, wherever else. And some of these paintings are available on her Etsy, so check that out too. This has been Cody Buchanan. I'll see you next time.